Hey there, property people. Welcome to the Regional Property Show, where we discuss topics designed to educate and inform listeners on how to get the most from their real estate experience in the Ballarat and surrounding areas. My name is Stu Brien, and I'm a licensed real estate agent and the owner of Stone Real Estate Ballarat. We're part of a large network of offices throughout Australia with a dedicated team servicing the Ballarat and surrounding community. If you would like to contact our office to discuss anything related to residential sales or rentals, you can call us on 5341 2200 during business hours, or just Google Stone Real Estate Ballarat. That's Stone, S-T-O-N-E, Real Estate Ballarat. So a building and pest inspection can provide buyers with peace of mind that what you're buying is sound and free from major structural defects. But what is a building inspection? Who can provide them? How are they used, and when should you do them, and how much do they cost? So I sit down with Justin Fraser, who is a former builder and building inspector, to go through all of this and much more, including when you don't need a building or pest inspector. And don't forget, if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe, because this helps get the message out to as many people as possible in the region. Right, welcome to Justin Fraser from Jim's Building Inspections. And I know, Justin, I know you as Tinny, essentially, which is pretty much speaking out the majority of Ballarat know you as well. So, correct, yes. So if I call Justin Tinny throughout this this conversation, everyone will at least know what I'm talking about. Give us a little bit of background, mate, because you've been doing this job for a long time now. But yeah, you weren't always a building inspector. No. Previous to this, you've got a background in construction.
Yeah, so I've been doing building inspections with Jim's Building Inspections now for 10 years. Prior to that, I was doing building works and had my own little building company.
Yep.
Where we employed some people and we did some houses and renos and stuff like that. Specialised mainly in, I seem to have got old historic stuff, but I did have a background working with Sovereign Hill. So, yeah, back right for where it started. So,
gotcha.
And then, yeah, so I got into that. But how I got into it wasn't really my idea. How I got into it was a mate of mine who was a building surveyor. I was doing some work for him, and he said, well, you know, what do you see yourself doing in like 10 years or 15 years? And he's obviously a lot smarter than me, makes plans going forward. And I said, look, I have no idea. And he said, look, there's a gap in the market here, because he gets inquiry after inquiry about, hey, can you come and do a pre-purchase building inspection on the house we're buying?
Right.
And I kind of had a look at it from that point and found that, I probably could make it work.
Yeah.
It suited my skill set. And yeah, we had a punt at it from that point.
Yeah. So what exactly is, I guess, a building report? And a lot of people probably already know this, but let's, for the people that perhaps haven't been exposed to this sort of stuff previously, let's talk about what a building report is and who can do them.
Well, basically a building report is a snapshot or a condition report of the property at the time of purchase or sale. Who can do them? You don't have to be a licensed builder to do them, but you do have to satisfy the insurance companies that you have enough knowledge and the skill set to actually complete one, to actually qualify to get insurance.
Yeah.
So building inspectors should all be insured at a minimum.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you commit anything in writing, you're liable for it. So
how do you actually become a building inspector?
Well, yeah, you basically you can start.
Yeah.
You can just start, providing you've got the background and the knowledge to do it. Yeah. You can just basically start.
So I guess this is an area for people to be mindful of.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, because you could check the credentials of the people that are doing.
Yeah.
You're a former builder.
That's right.
Such with the skill set in the trades and so forth. So, but anyone could essentially hang a shingle out and say that they're a building inspector, couldn't they?
And that's right. I mean, you know, you can get a builder's license without ever standing a frame and building a house, but it probably it's an advantage if you have done building works. I find building inspections is all about reverse engineering the build, because the problem exists, but why did the problem occur? That's probably the part that I find most interesting about just, okay, how did it occur and why is it ongoing?
Yeah.
Is it a one-off? Is it old? Is it going to be the end of the building? Like, is it going to be devastation to the building? Is it going to fall down? Like, it's
Yeah, so you're trying to find elements when you're looking at a building and doing pools. You're picking up on the small things, but you're effectively looking for the
Absolutely.
things.
Yeah. Yeah. So the main thing that we want to make sure is the building structurally sound. And that's why we look in roof spaces. That's why we try and get under houses, look at the subfloor areas. Yeah. That's look, most houses these days are on concrete slabs. So subfloors are, and obviously there's health and safety regulations that even we work to with certain spaces that we're allowed to be in. It gets a bit hairy this time of the year with snakes. You don't want to get on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, snakes and spiders. You get
Wife and love.
Yeah. We tend to make a lot of noise coming up to a manhole. Bang, crash, mate. Scare a snake out of the way, but come across snakes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Queensland, they get them a lot of the roof cavities. We get them in the subfloors. Yeah.
I hadn't thought of that.
No.
Spiders, sure.
Yeah, spiders everywhere. Spiders are, they don't worry me too much. Spiders, but snakes are the ones that, And people all stack iron against the side of the house, around the house, and that just traps for snakes and vermin to sit under and breed under. And
what are some of the more interesting structures that I guess you've gone and done?
Cool.
Because I was trying to find it. So, is there a licensing body that or an association or something that oversees the industry in any way?
Not really. The VBA will be involved.
And what's the
Victorian Building Association? They'll get involved at some point if there's a big error, if there's a big problem. But there's no real body that we report to or governing official that we have to report to monthly or weekly or anything like that. So, all our memberships, if you want to be a part of the master builders and so forth, they're all just done off your own bat. You don't really have to do anything.
Right.
So that's why you've got to do that. You have a look at your Google reviews and have a look at your background searches on your building inspectors, because there are a lot of guys that go, gee, it looks easy. We're going to start up and have a go at this.
Yeah.
And, there's horror stories without names being mentioned. Photographers decide they might have started doing it. Pest inspectors can sometimes, pest as in people looking for termite. Termite structure damage, that they'll decide they're going to start doing building inspections as well, but don't necessarily have the right training or qualifications. So
that does lead to obviously areas that we need to be mindful of when we're talking to you. So when you mentioned good use, is there anything else that you can kind of point to in terms of the things to look for when you're choosing a building inspector?
Well, I mean, I get a lot of referral work from past clients. So if someone has a great experience with a building inspector they've used prior, I get a lot of reviews from that. Real estate agents, I get a lot of good reviews from as well. And a lot of people don't trust a recommendation from a real estate agent because they think they're not working in their best interest. But the reality is, there's most towns have only got 3 or 4 really good building inspectors, and the real estate agent would rather a good building inspector do it than a poor one.
Absolutely.
Because it's not about stopping a deal or killing a deal. It's about getting all the right information to make a great decision moving forward.
I think if I can speak for the real estate industry as such, the important thing from our perspective is a level of transparency, because we know that the buyer of that property is going to be a seller of that property eventually. So we want to maintain that relationship as much. I'm suggesting this is the case with the majority of real estate agents out there.
Yep.
I can't speak for everybody. Obviously, I know that's the way that we've approached things from that. And we refer you a lot of business, obviously.
Yeah.
But there are other people out there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There is. So, yeah.
What are the sort of structures or the buildings that you recommend need a building inspection?
Well, mainly houses or homes and commercial properties. We'll scale back an inspection on a commercial property. We'll make sure that structurally it's sound and the roof's not leaking. And we can do some minor plumbing and then some minor checks. They're not necessarily inspections. It's very difficult to see it, but some minor checks. But a domestic or residential property is the one that we get most of our work from.
And is there a sort of age level where you would, is kind of Because I think about a house that's
a couple of years.
a few years old. Is it worth getting one then?
Yeah, well, I did one the other week. I did have to go to, I won't say where I went. I had to go. It was the development of 16 townhouses all in the one unit. And
I think everyone probably does when you talk about it.
Yeah, so, and they're less than 12 months old. So 50% of them now I do deal when you're talking about. So, yeah, so the lady said, look, I just want to it's my first home I've purchased. She's a single lady, first house she's ever purchased. So she wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
I said, no problem at all. We do brand new, we do 100-year-old. So we did the house, and as expected, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
But when we looked up at the manhole to see if there's any insulation, there was no insulation at all in there. So completely missing, which means it's outside the current building regs.
Yeah.
So
how would certificate of occupancy be?
Well, that's exactly right. So I spoke to the real estate agent. The real estate agent said, I better tell the developer.
Oh, yep.
The developer rang me straight away and said, can you send me a photo? And I said, yeah. And there it is.
Yeah.
And then he said, listen, can I get you into the others to have a look? And I said, well, yeah, I can't do it today, but yeah. So we got in to have a look at about 3 or 4 other ones that were still vacant.
Yeah.
And found there was no insulation in either of those. Oh. So 16 of them, none of them had insulation. So as to how they passed, no one will know.
And it's fascinating you say that because there was, in fact, you did an inspection on a place that we sold a couple of years ago and found well, the rents were different back then. I can't remember, but it would have been. Yeah,
there would have been something rather than nothing. But look, that's not a brand new home. So we do find issues with brand new homes.
Yeah, okay.
Obviously, the older homes are going to have more issues.
Yeah.
Oh, then again, depending on how well the owners maintain their home. So 50-year-old homes can, if they're well maintained, sometimes produce a really, really good report.
Yeah. 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 I'm curious, and I'm going to sort of meander a little bit around because as things come to my mind about this, I want to sort of bring it up with you because I've always wanted to ask the question around when you go through a property and it's clear that, let's say the property is 50 or 60 years old, but you can tell that it's been updated, renovated, maintained, and so forth. What's the what are you looking for around the renovation side of things? And do you look at things like, electrical work and plumbing work and gas work and so forth to make sure that it's been, done to a level of,
and this is, correct. I mean, gas work, electrical work, they all need their own individual certificates of compliance. So every time an electrician moves a power point at a house, he's supposed to leave us electrical certificate to say it's been done correctly and safe.
With the owner, man.
Yep. Yeah. So they should have a record of all those electrical works and also gas works.
But who keeps them?
Well, that's exactly right. So it's really difficult. It's very difficult. And then the only thing we can do, it's a real visual inspection.
Yeah.
And it's all about looking to see whether the finishes are of trade quality, because once the tiles go on the wall, we can't tell what's behind the wall. Plaster goes on the wall, we can't tell what's behind the wall.
Of course, yeah.
So there's only a certain amount that we can actually see. And sometimes it's done well and sometimes it's done by the homeowner, which is, it can be disastrous, but it can be okay. Yeah. It can be a good quality as well.
Yeah. Is there a sort of statute of limitation? That's probably not the right word, but there's if work's been done within a 7-year period and it's over a certain level, there's supposed to be building permits.
Well, that's right. And this is a real grey area. So the VBA will stipulate that it's got to be works over $16,000. I think $16,000, $14,000 or $16,000.
Right.
If it's attached to the house, if it's a covered roof section, it should all have permits. Decks over a certain size, things like that. But ultimately, if it's not over the certain time price category or price, then
who's to know?
Exactly. And it might be a 5 metre by 5 metre deck that costs $10,000, and is there a permit required?
Yeah.
So it's a real grey area.
I suspect that some of the regulations over time have changed in relation to certain things. And so when you look at this, you might say, okay, well, this isn't a current code.
Yep.
And do you highlight that sort of
We
stuff?
tried, especially when it's a safety issue. So
Yeah.
balustrades, for instance, on a balcony or a stairway. The regulations of balustrades change for better for safety reasons all the time. Even opening windows that open that are a metre above the ground have certain space that they're allowed to open up to or distances they're allowed to open to. Those regs change all the time for safety reasons.
Right.
So they're the ones we try and stay on. Well, they're the ones I try and stay on top of. If it's been changed for a reason for safety and it's outside the regulation for safety reasons, we'll make a note of it. But we don't have to enforce that they...
No, but it's highlighting certain deficiency.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean there's on cats.
No.
It just means that just these are things to be aware of.
And they've been changed for a reason, and that's to keep the occupants safe.
Yeah, that's right.
So
the
like smoke detectors.
Yeah. So the purchasers don't have to. We're really mindful to advise purchasers not to jump in shadows.
That's exactly right. And
that's a conversation, I guess you.
Yeah, that is exactly right. It's the way we read it. They can get very, building inspection can be really wordy.
Yeah.
And people get lost in the words rather than the fact.
Yeah.
And we have to write them for a certain, to satisfy a certain Australian standard.
I do.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. Actually, so you're thinking about it now, there's an Australian standard on how we actually do conduct building inspections. The Australian standard, it should be written in accordance to the Australian standards. So,
right. So when through the process would you be engaged to do a building inspection? When should a buyer reach out to you, do you think?
Generally, it's once the contracts have signed. Right. So they've found a house, everybody likes what's going on, they've settled on a price, signed a contract, and then there'll be a 7 or a 14-day period where the purchaser can get their ducks in a row and get their finance sorted and get a building inspection done to make sure it's not falling over type of thing. So that's generally when that's when I'm engaged.
Typically, what sort of time frame would you like to see people put to make sure that it can be done
I think 7 days is fine. 7 to 14 is 14 is probably preferable. Then we don't get too busy. We can spread it out a little bit. Oh, yeah, sorry, mate. 14, 7 days is cutting it a bit fine. Some weeks are busier than others.
Yeah.
But we normally get 7 days.
Yeah.
We normally get 7 days. We can normally do it. Yeah. 14 would be great.
That's just meant so you get next
day. Exactly right. Yeah. More fishing.
Then once they're done, you issue the report to them.
Yeah.
What are they then used by the purchasers?
Well, the information's then there's to then take back to the conveyancer, and the conveyancer may, steer them in a direction to try and utilise the information for a better deal, or perhaps there was a couple of surprises in there that no one was aware of, and the owner may have to, under the onus to fix them. So there's a lot of different ways people use them. A lot of people get it and go, yeah, we're expecting that because it was a 60-year-old building and we're happy with it.
Yeah.
And move forward. So
it's a peace of mind, essentially, and a bit of an insurance policy.
Absolutely, yeah. So no major defects, and major and safety defects are the ones we really concentrate on. The rest of it's just, man, people fixate on the things they can see and touch and feel, whereas we look at things and we go into the areas where they don't and can't see, and that's where sometimes the problems are. The rest of it's sometimes just superficial. Yeah. And, general wear and tear is one of the categories that I like to use, and general wear and tear is going to happen in every house.
Exactly.
You can't help it.
Mine.
Exactly. Yeah.
And flats, units, multi-level and things like that. What? Because I'm not a builder, so I'm not 100% sure, but would it be more difficult to pick up on structural issues there?
Yeah, because there's half the time there's no access to any of the cavities, roof voids and things like that. They may, especially multi-level apartment buildings, lots of times concrete slabs and fixed ceilings, so you can't actually get in to see what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
But we do on a big property such as, a block of flats, I'll always walk the perimeter of the flats and have a look at the construction style and the condition of the bricks or the panels or whatever it may be made out of, so to make an assessment on the overall condition of the building.
Okay. Yeah. Is there a time when it's not worth doing a building inspection?
That's a good question. Thanks. It's It's a good question. You would hope on a new building that you shouldn't have to get one, but time after again, it's proven that they're probably lucky they did get one. Builders these days, the quality of building's gone. It's certainly not as good as it was. Trying to be polite. Everything's built to $1 now, as into the bottom line. And that's fair enough. A lot of people work to a buying to a budget, but sometimes they cut corners and the quality's not there on new builds. A time not to get one. No, probably not then. Probably not. I mean, I'd recommend you get one on every building. It's a large investment. You're committed sometimes to 30 years of a loan on it, so you may as well make sure it's a drop in the bucket, really, the cost of it compared to the money you're spending on a home.
I'll get you to cover that in a couple of steps. What are those properties that are, let's say we're selling a place which has dwelling home, but it's shop window.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's
bulldoze. Yeah.
Is it like, if the buyer's intentions are this, we're probably going to push this over anyway?
No, of course not.
Low potential asbestos, for example. So
well,
aware of that sort of stuff.
I think sometimes financial institutions will make them get them any as well. So even though the building may be very, really undervalued and it's falling down and no one can live in it, inhabitable, sometimes the financial institutions will make them get the building inspection to satisfy their own tick boxes, and so that sometimes it's not even up to the buyer whether they want one or not. It's pushed upon them.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about. I know that price varies depending on the size of the property, the people that you're going to use.
Yep.
What's a range that you would be thinking of from a budget perspective to spend on a?
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously anything within your local area or the local area we work in. It's all based on size. So we started at a price of, $400 for a 1-bedroom unit, right up to, $700 or $800 if you're looking at bigger farmhouses and sheds and things as well.
So you should do the sheds as well.
Yeah, we do everything within about 30 metres of the property.
Yeah. Okay.
And that will sometimes take in great big sheds and even shearing sheds. So, things like that. So we're obligated to get those as well, really.
Vendor pre-sale inspection, which is
becoming more popular.
Yeah. Talk us through what they are.
Well, basically, it's a building inspection of the building that the person's selling. So it's their own home generally, and we'll go through and do a building inspection for it, give them a rundown on what defects are found.
Yep.
Sometimes they will use that information to fix some of the defects themselves. Okay. Other times they'll just utilise that information to push it through to the buyer to make it quicker, make it more transparent, make it easier for the purchaser to not have to worry about their own building inspection.
Yeah.
So it's a cost saving as well for the purchaser, because the seller would actually pay us to go and do the building inspection for them. So
one of the things that I was curious about is how buyers react to the vendor preparing a building inspection.
Yeah.
Is there sort of a reluctance?
Yeah, it depends on sometimes it depends on their previous experience with buying and selling.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a great way to go. And in fact, in some states in Australia, it's law that the seller has to provide the building inspection. So, so for every house that goes to the market in Canberra, for instance, you'll have to supply a building inspection as part of your Section 32.
Yeah.
So, and that may very well come into Victorian law one day. So it's one of those things that we may just have to get used to. There's no way we can get around lying or fudging or covering anything up, because it's our integrity and it's our reputation on the line for every building report we do. So we can't sugarcoat much.
No, that's right. Where vendors have chosen to do this in the past, we've found the process speeds up the negotiation, because getting to an unconditional state, because there's something that, number one, the negotiations take place on the contract, rather than negotiate to the contract and then have something that is uncovered,
and this
subsequently the agents know
Yeah.
The vendor didn't know.
Quite often the owner doesn't know about it.
Whereas we can price properties to the market
Yeah.
according to the condition.
That's right.
So it does make it a lot easier.
Yeah, so it's that full transparency. Like, we've had it done. This is what we found. What do you think now?
Yeah.
But yeah, and I'd forgotten about that because quite often, yeah, you'll settle on, from your perspective, you guys settle on a buying price.
Yeah.
The building inspection comes through and all of a sudden the buyer says, well, hang on a minute.
Yeah, that's right.
We want this fixed or we're having this much money off. Now, a lot of that's driven by conveyances because we won't, we don't, and we can't really put figures into we could give you a ballpark figure on what something would cost verbally, but to write it down, it's almost foolish to write it down. People have tried to sue us for that reason. We estimate it would cost $20,000 to $25,000 for a new roof. It comes in at $30,000, and they try and sue you for the other $5,000. So, well, it was an estimation.
It's a difficult one because the post-contract negotiations can be heartbreaking for a vendor, of course. But the challenge they face is that, look, this is information that wasn't necessarily available to you or us prior to the negotiation. Yeah, if something comes up, then of course maybe we just need to find some common ground.
Yeah,
but at the same time, from the vendor's perspective, they say, well, this is the house, this is the way it is, and take it or leave it. If if it's structural, you've got the capacity to exit the contract, and perhaps the next person that buys
yeah, that's right,
has to be aware of it. But from perspective, of course, the moment that we get from an agent's perspective, that is, the moment it's disclosed to us, material facts has to be subsequently disclosed to everybody. It's like termites, as part of the process, we have to disclose to every single buyer that that's what's happening.
And that should be the process. That's the transparency I think people are looking for.
Yeah.
I think that's what they want.
Yeah.
So a vendor's report, maybe it's the way to go. Maybe it's a better way, a better procedure.
Yeah, I think it allows us, from an agent's perspective, because we're not builders.
No.
We're not experienced in the construction side of things. So, how are we supposed to know that there are structural issues potentially? So, anyway, I find it a valuable tool. Yes, it allows us to provide the buyers with a level of information that perhaps they might be looking to understand where things are at. Some vendors might be a little bit gunfire about because they don't necessarily want to, outside out.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, they want to hide things. But those that have got nothing to hide, they're the vendors that you want to work for anyway.
Absolutely, yeah. And let's face it, the majority of vendors are fantastic. Yeah. And when they're faced with these issues,
facts,
they quite often, they're like, oh, what?
Yeah, exactly right.
Look,
because they have their own specialty field as well. So, yeah.
Now, in terms of permits, we've sort of touched on that a couple of seconds ago. Building reports don't cover this side of things, do they?
No, we don't.
Right.
Because that's a whole another level above us for qualifications. So building surveyors are the only ones that can issue permits.
Yeah.
Civil engineers, structural engineers can help and assist with them. They can override them.
Yeah.
But ultimately, a building inspector maybe would look at the works and make a comment on them, but the building surveyor would have to tick off on them and sign off on them.
It was interesting. We had an example of a building report that was done on a property that was maybe 100 years old. Yeah. Might have been a little bit older, and the owners had done some improvements and had a new kitchen installed. And upgraded the bathroom and so forth. And a gentleman who we won't mention came and did a building inspection on the property and scared the buyer off on the basis that because the work's been done in the kitchen, he couldn't guarantee that the plumbing had been done to code. Now, the vendor argued that this, the works were done by a tradesperson. So at the end of the day, now of course they haven't kept the certifications and all that sort of stuff. About paying someone to do the overall kitchen, like a kitchen person, who's licensed to do the work. Yep. But it can be really frustrating when buyers are spooked off these sort of things that perhaps they shouldn't be.
Well, that's it. And then And this is why certification of works like electrical and plumbing, keep the certificate.
Yeah.
Keep the certificate, even glazing certificates, shower screens and things.
Yeah.
They need certificates as well. They need you need a certificate of compliance for a brand new home for electrical, plumbing and glass. So if you're doing any renovation works,
It's new to me.
Yeah, there you go, glass. So get your certificates and keep them in your house file. So that if you do any renovation works, they say, look, these were conducted by a licensed tradesman. There's the certificates of compliance.
Right.
So the proof would be there.
Okay.
So it makes it easier in the long term, but you're right. No one keeps them. I don't. I'm just trying to struggle where mine are.
A mate of mine who's a smart
exactly.
And all that, I'm going, even in this place, I know, the guy that did the work in here for me.
Yeah.
I don't think I've got any certificates from him either.
They may stick them on the board.
Anyway,
yeah.
Just keep that down. A 137B.
Yes.
So
these are becoming a nightmare. These are becoming a real minefield.
Yeah, shame. So let's tell us what that is and what are the issues and challenges with it.
Well, from what I understand, because I actually I elect not to inspect on these or comment on these. I'm just not sure.
What are they?
Well, I'm pretty sure it's an owner builder's warranty insurance. So basically, any works that you do at your house that's to the value of $10,000 or more that's been overseen or conducted by the homeowner, will have to have a 137B on sale and that's a qualified tradesman who comes through. Mm-hmm. They will look at the quality of works and give you that looks like it's been done to the quality and standard that we're requiring. And then the homeowner then applies for insurance on that work for a period of time to guarantee the works are fine.
Okay. And
it's all done at the owner's cost.
Okay.
So from what I understand, that's them in a nutshell.
Right. Okay.
I understand. But I said there's only a few guys that do them.
Yeah.
I elect not to.
Yeah.
It's just, if you've got your certificates, you shouldn't need one, in my opinion.
And it's a retrospective thing done. Like this is a report that's done post the work.
Yep.
And prior to sale, where and it's inserted into the Section 32, I believe.
Yes, I believe that. Yeah.
So what essentially it does is it provides the purchaser with some peace of mind, at least, that the
works,
any of the works essentially that has been done to a property that might have been, like you said, overseen by the vendor. They don't have to have actually done the work.
No.
But it meets with their
industry standards. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
a difficult one because you look behind walls.
Exactly right. Once it's done and sealed, how do we actually know that there's a certain tests you can do, drip tests and things like that on, plumbing points. But once again, you've got to get a specialised plumber to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
A builder goes through and does it. So, so it's a bit of a minefield, that one. I'm not convinced it's the right way to go.
Is this a new?
It's becoming really popular. So I know it's been around for a while, but someone told me the other day that the question was asked to them when they put the house on the market, have you done any works or improvements yourself? And they said, yes, we painted the entire inside of the house.
Right.
And they had to get a 137B on the interior paint of the house because it would have been a value greater than $10,000 to have someone do it.
The interesting thing is that when I inquired about this dollar range, this amount of money, it's the material costs plus what it would cost you to get a trained layperson to do this. It's not your own labour, like you're charging yourself out at an
That's right.
hour. It's if you paid a painter, a professional painter, to do the work, then would it have cost you more?
And I think it's $10,000. I should be quite sure on that.
Yeah, look up and folks, just make sure you do some don't take our word for it. But I think the figure's actually even tightened up.
It may have.
So I'm going to get someone in from that one of the things to have,
Good idea.
you know, a better conversation around renovations and those sort of things, because it is
I'll have to tune in.
yeah. Please do. Please do. So let's finish up on the thing around pest inspections. Now, this is well, obviously, when someone orders a building inspection, we do encourage to get a pest inspection at that time.
Yep.
What exactly is a pest inspection? Who does those?
Yes.
What does it tell us?
The pest inspection is looking for termite damage.
Yep.
Nothing else.
Right.
So they just look for termites.
Okay.
So evidence of termite damage or a building that's got a termite nest in there.
Right.
And that's basically what they're looking for. So,
and what can that mean in terms of the property?
well, termites will eat away at your structural timber.
Yeah.
So they can impede on the structural integrity of the property, where they can literally eat away. The termites eat something. I'm not a termite inspector, but they eat, huge amounts of volume of food every day. Like they need 1,000 times their own body weight of food every day. So they're eating and eating and eating non-stop.
Trivia question.
Yes, there you go.
Isn't it? Righto.
So they can do massive damage to frames, and frames obviously are the structural component of the house. The thing, the whole house is on a frame.
Yes.
And once that's compromised, then you've got a massive safety concern of the potential of the building falling down.
I've heard some people use the properties on, I shouldn't say excuse, but use their reasoning as to why they're not going to get a pest inspection because the property sits on a slab. Is that a false perception?
Yeah, because sometimes they'll come over. So there's bridging, from what I understand, there's bridging points. That bridging points are areas where termites will travel across through a barrier or through a vegetation.
Yeah.
Into a building. Now, that can be up through trees that hang over on the roof line.
Right.
So the attack doesn't necessarily come from underneath. It can come from above as well.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
so it is an area. There are areas within Ballarat that are prone to this sort of stuff.
There.
So we don't want to scare people.
No. But the building inspector will generally recommend whether you need one in that area or not. So there are other areas that we just go, look, we wouldn't worry about it. Look, trees that haven't been in paddocks for years and years and years and years, termites will move on. If you cut the tree down that they're in, that's when they'll start looking for new homes. But if there's been no trees in those areas for years, then there's a very, very low chance you get termite activity in that area.
Yeah.
And Ballarat in a whole has got a fairly low termite activity anyway.
Yeah.
Because they like humidity, and they like heat. Anyone that knows Ballarat, we don't have either of those. So
not very often.
We're 800-900 metres above sea level. It's just too cold. They don't like, they don't like our climate. They don't tend to survive well here. Yeah. I'm not saying we don't find them still.
Yeah.
But it's a lower risk here in Ballarat than it is say you go to Bendigo or Geelong. It's much higher risk.
If a property has been attacked by termites, what's the end result of that? Generally speaking, most people when they hear termite strike, they run on. Yeah.
So we've got to obviously find out whether there's an active nest, or it's dormant, and then if it's active, we then try and extract them, get the termites to come out. So you offer them food, get them to come out. Then once they're out and done, we can open up and have a look at how much has been affected. It may be an area, it may be a lot, but then it's basically remove sections that have been damaged and replace it with new ones.
Yeah. Okay. If someone needs a termite inspection, when let's say they're contacting a building inspector, usually what happens is the building inspector will have a relationship with
the absolutely. Yeah. So I've got 2 or 3 guys that I'll work with, depending on what areas we go. And we try and make them come through at the same time we go through, so it's less disruption on the owners or the tenant, and it's also we bounce information off each other as well. So it's really good to see what they find and see what you find and things like that. So it's 2 sets of good eyes going over a property. Generally doesn't hurt either.
If someone was treating their property on a regular basis, would you how would you know that? Like, because for example, if you're going to go and do a building inspection and at a, the vendor saying, well, we treat our property on a regular basis, we have it,
So they've got certain regulations that they need to adhere to as well. So quite often what happens is if there is a termite barrier included in the build, there'll be a notification in the meter box on the building. The meter box where your switchboard is. Termite barrier will either be a physical barrier like a blanket, which is done at the construction stage, or there's a trench they can dig around the building and they can inject a chemical in through there, which can be done after the building's been completed. Right. So either way, I think it's quite successful. And if with either of those barriers included at that building, there'll be a notification to switchboard on what barrier it is and when it gets serviced. So I think most barriers will give you a 50-year guarantee on your termite barrier. Barrier providers will give you a 50-year guarantee on your termite barrier, providing you get an annual inspection on your property, annual pest inspection on your property. So, and that might be a bad thing if you live in a really, really high area of termite activity. And a lot of people that live in those high areas of termite activity, they'll go for a steel frame home. Which is, obviously termites don't like steel. They'll still eat your arcs, doors and skirts if they get in your kitchens. But structurally, you should be better off.
Gotcha. Okay. I think we're just about out of time.
Yeah. Well,
but thank you for coming in. I appreciate it.
No problem at all.
And it's been really, really helpful. And some of the info we've covered today. And I hope that, the people that are listening have had an opportunity to at least get a little bit better understanding of what it is that you guys do. So.
Well, that's right. If not, give me a ring.
Yeah. I will make sure we put the details.
Yeah, thanks, mate. That'd be awesome. Anytime. Thank you, mate.
Take care.
Good to see you.
If you have a friend or family member that you feel might benefit from some of the information that you've just heard, then it would mean the world to us if you could share this episode with them personally. Oh, and one last thing before you go. We have some really interesting topics planned for the upcoming episodes, so if you have any comments, feedback, or real estate topics that you'd like covered, I would love to hear from you. So please reach out to us via email, which is info@regionalproperty.show, or leave us a note in the comments section. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button to be notified when new episodes are released. I'm Stu Brien. Thanks for listening.